Ma'am, I can afford anything in this store.
I'm not sure about that. These pieces are very expensive.
Are you questioning my ability to pay based on how I look?
I'm just being realistic about pricing. Maybe look at something more reasonable.
I make more in a month than you probably see all year.
Excuse me, security!
That heated exchange you just heard? It happened at an upscale jewelry store on what should have been a simple Valentine's Day shopping trip. But before we dive into how this situation exploded into a viral controversy that cost someone their job, let me tell you about the man at the center of this story. Dr. Damon Richardson's alarm went off at exactly 5:47 a.m. on that Tuesday morning in February. He reached for his phone, immediately checking his surgery schedule while his coffee maker hummed to life in the background. Ethiopian blend, medium fine grind, the same routine he'd followed for the past 8 years since finishing his residency. As Damon adjusted his wedding ring, a habit he'd developed whenever deep in thought, his phone buzzed with a text from his wife Sarah. Don't forget 15 years tomorrow, 15 years. Had it really been that long since their wedding day? He smiled, laying out his navy suit and checking that his medical conference badge was still in the jacket pocket from yesterday's pediatric surgery symposium. The morning rounds at Children's Hospital started like any other. Dr. Richardson, the Peterson case is scheduled for 2 p.m., his surgical coordinator informed him as they walked through the pediatric wing. The conversations that followed revealed the depth of his expertise, discussions about complex cardiac procedures, innovative surgical techniques, and the delicate art of operating on children's hearts. Between consultations, a colleague mentioned picking up a Valentine's surprise for his spouse. That's when Damon remembered, he still needed to find something special for Sarah. He quickly checked jewelry store hours on his phone, noting that prestige jewelers at the mall stayed open until 8 p.m. Perfect. He could finish his morning surgeries and make it there by mid-afternoon. His phone lit up with text exchanges with Sarah about their dinner reservations at Le Bernardin, the French restaurant where they'd had their first anniversary dinner. Another notification caught his attention. His monthly salary deposit of $45,000 had just hit his account. As head of pediatric surgery, Damon had worked hard to reach this level of financial success, but money had never been his primary motivation. Saving children's lives was. Meanwhile, across town, Jessica Crawford was having the kind of morning that made her question every career choice she'd made. At 28, this was her third retail management position in 2 years. The previous stores had let her go for what they called customer service issues, but Jessica preferred to think of it as being realistic about sales expectations. Her recent divorce had left her financially strained, paying alimony to her ex-husband while trying to maintain the lifestyle she'd grown accustomed to. The pressure from her district manager about qualifying customers properly rang in her ears from yesterday's conference call. Jessica, we need to maximize our sales efficiency. Don't waste time on customers who aren't serious buyers. That advice had evolved into Jessica's personal system of judging customers by their appearance, what she internally called maximizing sales efficiency. Why spend 30 minutes showing expensive pieces to someone who might not have the money? Better to quickly assess and redirect them to more appropriate options. The morning had already been challenging. A group of teenagers had attempted to shoplift earlier, putting everyone on edge. Jessica found herself stress-eating a granola bar in the back office, caffeine crash hitting hard after her third espresso of the day. But now, at 2:30 in the afternoon, Prestige Jewelers hummed with its usual upscale ambience. Soft jazz played through hidden speakers while polished display cases showcased pieces worth more than most people's annual salaries. The lighting was carefully designed to make every diamond sparkle, every gold setting gleam with luxury. An elderly couple browsed the anniversary ring collection, examining pieces in the $20,000 range. They moved with the confidence of people accustomed to expensive purchases, their conversation peppered with casual references to their Lake Tahoe home and upcoming European cruise. 2 sales associates worked the floor that afternoon. Amanda, hired just 3 weeks ago, still felt nervous around the high-end pieces, constantly double-checking prices and policies. David, with 5 years of experience at Prestige, had developed a smooth rhythm with customers, knowing exactly when to give space and when to provide detailed information about settings and stone quality. The security guard, Jerome, had just stepped out for his lunch break, leaving the store temporarily without its usual security presence. The timing would prove significant in the events that followed. At 2:47 p.m., Damon Richardson pushed through the glass doors of Prestige Jewelers. He still wore his medical scrubs under a winter coat, having come straight from a successful surgery on a 7-year-old with a congenital heart defect. The procedure had run longer than expected, but the child was stable and recovering beautifully. Damon looked tired but satisfied with the morning's work. His entrance was unremarkable, just another customer on a busy Tuesday afternoon. He unwound his scarf and looked around, taking in the elegant displays and quietly impressive atmosphere. The elderly couple glanced up briefly before returning to their conversation with David about diamond clarity ratings. Damon approached the main display case, his trained eye immediately drawn to a stunning tennis bracelet that would be perfect for Sarah. The diamonds caught the light beautifully, and the craftsmanship was exquisite. He could already picture it on her wrist at their anniversary dinner tomorrow night. Amanda noticed him first and started walking over with a friendly smile. But before she could reach him, Jessica intervened, stepping smoothly between Amanda and the display case. "I'll take care of this customer, Amanda," Jessica said with the authority of a manager making an executive decision. Amanda hesitated for a moment, then nodded and returned to organizing a nearby display of earrings. The stage was now set. A successful pediatric surgeon, still in his scrubs from saving a child's life, stood before a jewelry case containing the perfect Valentine's gift for his wife of 15 years. Across from him, a store manager whose personal and professional pressures had created a toxic cocktail of assumptions and prejudices. Neither of them could have predicted how the next few minutes would spiral into a confrontation that would be viewed by millions, cost someone their career, and become a case study in how quickly bias can destroy lives. What happened next would test everything Damon believed about dignity, everything Jessica thought she knew about customer service, and everything the other witnesses believed about standing up for what's right. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me show you exactly how a simple request to see a tennis bracelet turned into a battle that would change everyone involved forever. If you want to see how this confrontation unfolds and whether justice is truly served, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Stories like this need to be told, and your support helps us continue exposing discrimination wherever we find it. Before we continue, I want to know, have you ever been judged or treated differently while shopping because of how you looked? Drop your experiences in the comments. Let's start a conversation about this. Jessica's tone shifted the moment she approached Damon, taking on what she considered her professional assessment voice. "What exactly are you looking for today?" she asked, her eyes quickly scanning his scrubs and tired appearance. Damon pointed to the tennis bracelet that had caught his attention. "I'd like to see that one, please," he said politely, indicating the piece in the center of the display case. Jessica followed his gaze and her eyebrows raised slightly. "That's a $12,000 piece," she said, as if the price tag itself should end the conversation. "I understand the price," Damon replied calmly. "May I see it, please?" The pause that followed lasted only a few seconds, but it spoke volumes. Jessica's training kicked in, not the customer service training from her employee handbook, but her personal system of customer evaluation that had been reinforced by pressure from management and her own financial anxieties. "Well, I'm just not sure if that's in your price range," Jessica said, her voice carrying what she believed was helpful honesty. The words hung in the air. David, helping the elderly couple several feet away, glanced over with a frown. Amanda, arranging earrings nearby, felt her stomach tighten. Even the elderly customers paused their conversation, sensing a shift in the store's atmosphere. Damon processed what he just heard. In his 15 years of marriage, countless successful surgeries, and a medical career that had taken him from inner-city hospitals to the prestigious Children's Hospital, he'd encountered this kind of assumption before. But it never stopped stinging. "I'm sorry, did you just tell me I can't afford to look at jewelry in a jewelry store?" Damon asked, his voice still controlled but with an edge that hadn't been there moments before. Jessica, feeling defensive, doubled down. "I'm just being realistic about pricing. These are very expensive pieces and I don't want to waste anyone's time." "Waste anyone's time?" Damon reached into his wallet and pulled out his Platinum American Express card. "Does this look like I'm wasting time?" Jessica glanced at the card dismissively. "Anyone can get those in the mail these days. They send them to everyone." The casual dismissal hit Damon harder than he expected. He pulled out his medical ID badge, the same one he'd used to access the surgical suite just hours earlier. "I'm a pediatric surgeon at Children's Hospital. I think I can handle the payment for a bracelet. I've seen fake badges before, Jessica replied without missing a beat. Do you have proof of income? 4 pieces this expensive, we need to qualify our customers. Proof of income? Damon's voice rose slightly. To look at jewelry? 4 pieces this expensive, we need to qualify our customers, Jessica repeated, as if saying it twice made it more reasonable. David, still within earshot, leaned toward Amanda and whispered, she never asks white customers for income proof. Ever. The store policy sign, clearly visible just 3 feet from where they stood, read in elegant script, all customers welcome, financing available. But Jessica seemed to be operating under a different set of rules entirely. Amanda watched the interaction with growing discomfort. In her 3 weeks at Prestige Jewelers, she'd seen Jessica help dozens of customers. Wealthy-looking couples were shown pieces immediately. Well-dressed individuals were given detailed explanations and personalized service. But now, watching a polite customer being challenged for simply asking to see merchandise, she felt sick to her stomach. The elderly couple had stopped pretending not to listen. The wife tugged at her husband's sleeve, clearly uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. They'd been debating between 2 anniversary rings, but now the store's atmosphere felt charged and unpleasant. Damon took a deep breath, drawing on the patience he'd developed through years of medical training. Ma'am, I just finished a 7-hour surgery on a child this morning. I'm trying to buy my wife a Valentine's gift for our 15th wedding anniversary. I understand you need to be careful, but I'm a legitimate customer with legitimate means to make this purchase. But Jessica wasn't listening anymore. The phrase that came out of her mouth next would trigger something in Damon that went back over a decade. Be realistic about what you can actually afford, she said with exaggerated patience, as if speaking to someone who didn't understand basic economics. Those words hit Damon like a physical blow. Suddenly he was 22 years old again, standing in a different jewelry store with his medical school ID and a carefully saved $3,000, trying to buy an engagement ring for Sarah. The clerk's condescending tone, the demand for bank statements, the humiliation of having to prove his worth just to spend his own money. He remembered calling Sarah afterward, his voice shaking with anger and hurt. Her fury had matched his own. That's discrimination, Damon. Pure and simple. They'd driven to 3 different stores that day until they found one that treated him with basic human dignity. Standing there in his wedding ring, the ring from that painful day 12 years ago, Damon had made a promise to himself, never again. He'd worked too hard, achieved too much, and proven himself too many times to accept this treatment. Back in the present, that promise gave him strength. I'd like to speak to your manager, he said firmly. Jessica's response came with barely concealed irritation. I am the manager, and I decide who can afford what in this store. The power dynamic was now crystal clear. Jessica wasn't just a sales associate following misguided policies, she was the decision maker, the final authority on who deserved to see expensive merchandise and who didn't. Damon decided to test her boundaries. Fine. Then I'd like to see that necklace as well, he pointed to an $8,000 diamond necklace. And those earrings, indicating a $15,000 set of diamond studs. I'm not wasting time on window shopping, Jessica snapped, her professional facade cracking completely. The other customers were now openly staring. The elderly couple had moved closer to David, clearly planning to leave. Amanda had stopped pretending to organize earrings and was watching the confrontation with obvious distress. Damon pulled out his phone. Maybe I should call my bank and have them verify my account balance for you. But his phone, which had been on since his 5:47 a.m. alarm and used extensively during his surgery preparation, was down to 8% battery. The screen dimmed as he tried to access his banking app. That won't be necessary, Jessica said coldly. What will be necessary is for you to either select something appropriate to your budget or leave the store. Something appropriate to my budget? Damon's composure finally cracked. Ma'am, I can afford anything in this store. I make more in a month than you probably see all year. The words came out harsher than he intended, born from frustration and years of similar encounters. But Jessica seized on his tone immediately. Excuse me? Security, she called out, though Jerome was still at lunch. Security? For asking to see jewelry in a jewelry store. Sir, you need to leave now or I'm calling security, Jessica announced loudly enough for everyone in the store to hear. Her hand moved to the panic button behind the counter, a red button connected directly to mall security and the local police department. It was meant for robberies, violent customers, and genuine emergencies. You're calling security because I asked to see a tennis bracelet? I'm calling security because you're being disruptive and refusing to leave when asked. I haven't been asked to leave until this very moment, and I haven't done anything disruptive except ask to see merchandise. But Jessica had already made her decision. She pressed the panic button. Within minutes, Jerome returned from lunch to find his radio crackling with an emergency call from his own store. Confused and concerned, he rushed back to discover a well-dressed black man in medical scrubs standing calmly at the jewelry counter while his manager spoke rapidly into the phone. 911, what's your emergency? This is Jessica Crawford, manager at Prestige Jewelers in Westfield Mall. I have a suspicious individual who's refusing to leave the store. He's demanding to see expensive jewelry but can't provide proof he can afford it. He became verbally aggressive when I tried to help him find more appropriate options. Is he threatening anyone or causing damage? He's being disruptive and making other customers uncomfortable. I think he might be casing the store for a robbery. We're sending units now. Damon stood frozen, listening to Jessica describe him as a robbery suspect to emergency services. The same hands that had saved a child's life that morning were now clasped behind his back in a deliberately non-threatening posture. The same voice that had comforted worried parents was now silent, knowing that anything he said could be twisted and used against him. Amanda finally found her courage. Ma'am, he wasn't being aggressive. He was just asking to see jewelry. Amanda, return to your duties, Jessica snapped without taking her eyes off Damon. David had finished helping the elderly couple, who left quickly with promises to think about it and maybe come back later. But David didn't retreat. Instead, he moved closer to the unfolding situation, his years of retail experience telling him that something was very wrong. The next few minutes passed in tense silence. Damon remained still, hands visible, making no sudden movements. Jessica stood behind the counter, gripping the phone like a weapon. Amanda pretended to work while stealing glances at the situation. David positioned himself where he could witness everything clearly. When the mall security and police officers finally arrived, they found what appeared to be a standard retail dispute. A well-dressed white female manager on one side, a black male customer in medical scrubs on the other. Their initial impressions, formed in those crucial first seconds, would shape everything that followed. Jessica immediately approached the first officer through the door. Thank you for coming so quickly. This man has been harassing customers and demanding to see expensive jewelry he clearly can't afford. When I tried to help him find something more reasonable, he became hostile and verbally aggressive. 2 officers had responded, Officer Thompson, a 15-year veteran, and Officer Blake, with 3 years on the force. Blake took charge immediately, his training focused on de-escalation and quick resolution. Sir, what's the situation here? Blake asked Damon. I'm a doctor trying to buy my wife a Valentine's gift, Damon replied calmly. I asked to see a tennis bracelet, and the manager told me she wasn't sure I could afford it. Do you have proof you can afford a $12,000 bracelet? Blake asked, unconsciously echoing Jessica's earlier demand. The question hung in the air like a challenge. Damon's phone was nearly dead, his bank statements were at home, and his primary form of identification was his medical license, which Jessica had already dismissed as potentially fake. This is exactly the kind of discrimination that happens every day but rarely gets exposed. If you think everyone deserves to be treated with dignity regardless of their appearance, hit that subscribe button and share this video. These stories matter. Here's what I want to know. If you witnessed this happening in a store, would you speak up for the customer being discriminated against, or would you stay silent? Be honest in the comments. Officer Thompson, the more experienced of the two, immediately sensed that the situation was more complex than his partner realized. While Blake focused on the immediate complaint, Thompson began looking at the bigger picture. Let's slow this down, Thompson said, positioning himself where he could observe everyone. Ma'am, you said he was being aggressive. Can you be more specific about what he did or said? Jessica's story began to unfold, but under Thompson's careful questioning, the details started shifting. Well, he was demanding to see expensive pieces, and when I explained our policies about qualifying customers, he got an attitude. What policies specifically? Thompson asked. We have to verify that customers can afford high-end pieces before showing them. David, who had been silent until now, finally spoke up. Actually, that's not our policy. Our training specifically says all customers should be welcomed and shown any pieces they're interested in. Jessica shot David a look that could have melted steel. David, you don't understand the full scope of management policies. I've worked here for 5 years, David replied firmly. I know our policies. Meanwhile, Thompson had walked over to Jerome, the security guard, who was reviewing the situation with confusion. Jerome, right? What did you observe when you got back from lunch? Honestly, Officer Thompson, I was on my lunch break when the call came in. When I got back, the gentleman was standing at the counter talking normally with Ms. Crawford. I didn't see any aggressive behavior. Did you review the security footage? Jerome nodded toward the discrete cameras positioned throughout the store. I can pull it up right now if you want to see what happened. As Jerome worked with the security system, Thompson approached Damon again. Dr. Richardson, you said you're a physician? Pediatric surgeon at Children's Hospital. I just finished a surgery this morning before coming here. Thompson pulled out his phone. I'm going to verify your employment. What's the main hospital number? For the first time since the confrontation began, Damon felt a spark of hope. Someone was actually going to check his credentials instead of dismissing them outright. The call connected quickly. Children's Hospital, how may I direct your call? This is Officer Thompson with the police department. I need to verify employment for a Dr. Damon Richardson. One moment please. Dr. Richardson? Yes, he's head of our pediatric surgery department. Is everything all right? Just a routine verification. Can you confirm he's scheduled to work today? He was in surgery this morning and is off this afternoon. He had a complex cardiac case that lasted several hours. Thompson looked at Damon with new understanding. Thank you for your time. While this was happening, Jerome had accessed the security footage. The cameras had captured everything from multiple angles. Damon entering calmly, Amanda starting to approach him, Jessica intercepting the initial conversation, the request to see jewelry, Jessica's refusal, and the escalation that followed. Officer Thompson, you need to see this, Jerome called softly. The footage was crystal clear. Damon's body language throughout remained calm and non-threatening. His hands stayed visible, his voice never raised to shouting levels, and his requests were consistently polite. Jessica, on the other hand, could be seen becoming increasingly agitated, making dismissive gestures, and finally reaching for the panic button while Damon stood motionless. He's telling the truth, Jerome said quietly. The gentleman never did anything threatening. Amanda, emboldened by David's earlier stand, finally found her voice. Officer, I watched the whole thing. Dr. Richardson was polite the entire time. He just wanted to see a bracelet for his wife. Blake, who had been taking Jessica's statement, walked over to Thompson. What are you finding? The security footage contradicts the complaint, Thompson said diplomatically. Hospital confirms he's a pediatric surgeon. No signs of aggressive behavior on camera. Meanwhile, other customers who had been in the store during the incident were gathering outside, drawn by the police cars and commotion. Several had taken out their phones and started recording when they realized what was happening. Sarah Chin, a marketing executive who had been browsing engagement rings in the back of the store, approached Officer Thompson. Excuse me, officer? I was here shopping and witnessed the entire incident. That man was not aggressive at all. The manager was the one who escalated the situation. Would you be willing to provide a statement? Thompson asked. Absolutely. What happened to that man was completely unfair. Robert Martinez, the elderly gentleman who had been ring shopping with his wife, returned to the store despite his wife's protests. Officer, my wife and I were here when this started. We left because we felt uncomfortable but not because of that gentleman. The manager's behavior was inappropriate. We've shopped here before and we've never seen anyone treated like that. The witness statements were piling up, and all of them supported Damon's version of events. Thompson began checking Damon's medical license on the state database, which confirmed his credentials, board certifications, and clean professional record. Blake pulled Thompson aside. This isn't what the manager described at all. No, it's not, Thompson agreed. This is looking like a discrimination complaint rather than a disorderly customer. Back at the jewelry counter, Jessica was beginning to realize that her version of events wasn't holding up under scrutiny. When Officer Thompson approached her again, her story started to change. "Look, maybe I was being overly cautious," she said, "but we've had problems with theft recently, and I was just trying to protect the store's inventory." "Ma'am, according to multiple witnesses and security footage, Dr. Richardson never exhibited any suspicious behavior. He simply asked to see jewelry and provided identification when you questioned his ability to afford it." I didn't know he was really a doctor. Would it matter if he wasn't?" Thompson asked pointedly. That question hung in the air. David and Amanda exchanged meaningful looks. Jerome nodded approvingly. Even Blake was beginning to understand the real issue. "I was just following what I thought was policy," Jessica said weakly. "Ma'am, your own employees say that asking for income verification isn't store policy." Jessica looked around the store, seeing her colleagues' faces for the first time since the incident began. David's expression showed disappointment. Amanda looked hurt and angry. Jerome shook his head sadly. Thompson approached Damon, who had remained remarkably composed throughout the investigation. "Dr. Richardson, I owe you an apology. Based on our investigation, there was no justification for the emergency call. The security footage clearly shows you behaving as a normal customer throughout the incident." "I appreciate you taking the time to verify the facts," Damon replied with dignity. "We're going to document this incident properly. If you want to file a complaint, we can help you with that process." For the first time, Damon smiled slightly. "I just wanted to buy my wife a Valentine's gift." Thompson called the hospital one more time, this time asking different questions. "Can you confirm Dr. Richardson's salary range for our report?" "I can't give exact figures, but I can confirm that as head of pediatric surgery, Dr. Richardson's annual compensation is in the mid-six-figure range." Thompson approached Blake with the final piece of information. "His annual salary is over $500,000. He could buy everything in this jewelry case and not make a dent in his monthly income." Blake's expression changed completely. $500,000? Mid-six figures, according to the hospital. Blake approached Damon with new respect. "Dr. Richardson, I apologize for the way this was handled. You should never have been put in this position." But the real revelation was yet to come. Thompson asked Damon if he could access his bank account to complete their report. Damon's phone had died completely, but he borrowed Thompson's phone to log into his mobile banking app. The checking account balance displayed on the screen: $127,847. "Jesus," Blake whispered loud enough for Jessica to hear. Jessica's face went completely white. The man she had accused of being unable to afford a $12,000 bracelet had more money in his checking account than she made in 3 years. Thompson completed his report with precise details: highly educated professional, substantial income, clean background, polite behavior throughout incident, no justification for emergency response. The incident report would become a matter of public record. As the investigation concluded, Damon made one final request. "I'd still like to purchase the tennis bracelet for my wife." Jessica started to step forward, but David intervened smoothly. "I'd be happy to help you with that purchase, Dr. Richardson." The transaction took 5 minutes. Damon's Platinum American Express card, the same one Jessica had dismissed, processed the $12,000 purchase without issue. No verification required, no additional authorization needed, no questions asked. As David wrapped the bracelet in elegant packaging, Amanda made an announcement that surprised everyone. "I quit," she said, removing her name tag and setting it on the counter. "I can't work at a place where customers are treated like this." "Amanda, wait," Jessica started, but Amanda was already walking toward the door. "What happened here today was wrong and everyone knows it." The store fell silent except for the soft jazz still playing through the speakers. The incident that began with a simple request to see jewelry had transformed into something much larger, a reckoning with assumptions, policies, and the real cost of discrimination. But the consequences were just beginning. Stories like this show why we need to keep recording and sharing instances of discrimination. Change only happens when people see what's really going on. Subscribe if you want to see more stories that matter. What do you think should happen next? Should Jessica keep her job if she apologizes, or are some actions unforgivable? Let me know what you think in the comments. As the police officers completed their paperwork and prepared to leave, the real fallout from the incident was just beginning. The store, which had been closed to new customers during the investigation, reopened to find a small crowd gathered outside. Word had spread through the mall, and people were curious about the police activity at the upscale jewelry store. Sarah Chin, the marketing executive who had witnessed the incident, had done more than just provide a statement to police. She had discreetly recorded parts of the confrontation on her phone, and within minutes of the police leaving, she was uploading the footage to social media. "Just witnessed the most blatant discrimination at Prestige Jewelers," she typed. A black doctor trying to buy his wife a Valentine's gift was accused of being unable to afford jewelry and had the police called on him. This is 2024 and this is still happening. #jewelry while shopping #retail discrimination. The video began circulating immediately. Sarah's followers shared it, then their followers shared it, and within an hour, it had been viewed thousands of times. The comments section filled with outrage, similar stories, and calls for boycotts. Meanwhile, back inside the store, Jessica was experiencing the first waves of consequence. David and the remaining staff were looking at her differently. The easy camaraderie that had existed among the team was gone, replaced by an uncomfortable tension. Jessica retreated to her office to call her district manager, Kelly Thornton. The conversation did not go well. "You called the police on a customer who wanted to buy $12,000 worth of jewelry?" Kelly's voice crackled through the phone. "I thought he was suspicious. He was in scrubs, he looked tired, and he couldn't provide income verification." "Jessica, we don't require income verification. That's not our policy and you know it. I was being cautious after the theft incidents we've had." "What theft incidents? We haven't had any theft in your store in 8 months." Jessica fell silent. She had been referring to incidents from her previous job, not from Prestige Jewelers. "Kelly, I think there might be some social media attention on this." "What do you mean, social media attention?" Jessica pulled up her phone and searched for the store's name. Her heart sank as she found Sarah's video, already shared hundreds of times with comments pouring in. "Oh no," she whispered. "Jessica, what's happening?" "There's a video. People are calling it discrimination." "Send me the link. Now." Kelly watched the video with mounting horror. As head of regional operations for a luxury jewelry chain, she knew exactly what this meant. Corporate damage control, legal reviews, potential lawsuits, media attention, and customer boycotts. Within 30 minutes, Kelly was in her car driving to the mall. Within an hour, the corporate legal team was on a conference call. Within 2 hours, the company's crisis management PR firm was developing response strategies. But social media moves faster than corporate bureaucracy. By evening, the #jewelry while shopping was trending locally. Local news stations had picked up the story. The video had been viewed over 50,000 times. Dr. Damon Richardson, meanwhile, had returned home to his wife Sarah with the beautifully wrapped tennis bracelet and an unbelievable story. "They called the police on you for shopping?" Sarah's voice rose in disbelief. "For asking to see a tennis bracelet," Damon confirmed. "The same kind of thing that happened when you bought my engagement ring?" "Almost identical." Sarah's anger was immediate and fierce. "This has to stop, Damon. This can't keep happening to people." The police were actually very professional once they investigated. The manager was the problem. What was her name? Jessica Crawford. Sarah was already pulling out her laptop. As a social worker with experience in advocacy, she knew how to research and document discrimination cases. What she found made her even angrier. Jessica's LinkedIn profile showed a pattern. 3 different retail management jobs in 2 years, each lasting less than 12 months. Her recommendations were lukewarm at best, and there were no glowing reviews from colleagues or customers. "Damon, I think this woman has done this before." Sarah began cross-referencing Jessica's previous employers with online reviews and complaint databases. Sure enough, there were similar incidents at Jessica's previous store's customers complaining about being treated dismissively, having their ability to afford merchandise questioned, and being made to feel unwelcome. "This isn't her first time," Sarah concluded. "This is a pattern." The next morning brought a media firestorm that none of them had expected. The local news had run the story as their lead segment. Doctor discriminated against while Valentine's shopping. The segment included Sarah Chen's video, interviews with witnesses, and commentary from civil rights advocates. Kelly Thornton arrived at Prestige Jewelers at 7 a.m. to find 3 news vans in the mall parking lot and protesters beginning to gather. The corporate crisis team had worked through the night, but they were already behind the story. Jessica arrived for her normal shift to find Kelly waiting for her, along with two executives from corporate headquarters who had flown in overnight. "Jessica, we need to talk." The conversation took place in the small office behind the store. Jessica's employment file was spread across the desk. Her application, performance reviews, training records, and now police reports from yesterday's incident. "This is a termination meeting," Kelly began. "Your actions yesterday violated company policy, damaged our brand reputation, and exposed us to potential legal action." "I can explain." "There's nothing to explain. We've reviewed the security footage, read the police report, and interviewed the witnesses. You discriminated against a customer based on his appearance and created a hostile environment for both customers and employees." "I was trying to protect the store." "From what?" "A pediatric surgeon with a six-figure income trying to buy his wife a Valentine's gift." Jessica had no answer. The termination process was swift but thorough. Jessica's access to store systems was revoked, her keys confiscated, and her personal belongings boxed up. She was escorted from the premises by mall security, walking past news cameras and protesters who had gathered outside. But corporate accountability was just the beginning. The video had now been shared over 200,000 times. News outlets from across the country were picking up the story. Civil rights organizations were calling for comprehensive policy changes throughout the retail industry. Dr. Damon Richardson found himself at the center of a national conversation he never wanted to join. Reporters were calling his hospital, seeking interviews. Social media users were praising his dignity and composure. Advocacy groups wanted to use his story as an example of systemic discrimination. The bracelet, meanwhile, sat in its elegant box on Damon and Sarah's dining room table, a beautiful piece of jewelry that had become a symbol of something much larger. Jessica Crawford returned to her apartment to find her phone buzzing constantly with calls from reporters, angry social media users who had tracked down her personal information, and former colleagues who had seen the news coverage. Her attempt to find new employment began immediately, but the video had made her unemployable in retail management. When potential employers Googled her name, the first result was the discrimination incident. Her LinkedIn profile was flooded with negative comments. David, meanwhile, had been promoted to interim store manager and was working with corporate to implement new training protocols. Amanda had been rehired with a promotion and a raise, becoming the store's customer service specialist. The broader changes came quickly. Prestige Jewelers implemented company-wide anti-discrimination training, new customer service protocols, and a zero-tolerance policy for profiling customers. Mystery shoppers were hired to test stores for bias. The incident became required training material for all employees. But the personal costs were still mounting. Jessica's ex-husband used the incident in their ongoing divorce proceedings, arguing that her inability to maintain employment affected her alimony obligations. Her professional reputation was destroyed. Her financial situation, already precarious, became desperate. The bracelet was presented to Sarah Richardson on Valentine's Day at Le Bernardin, the same French restaurant where they had celebrated their first anniversary. As Damon fastened the clasp around her wrist, they both understood that the beautiful piece of jewelry represented more than their 15-year marriage. "Every time I wear this," Sarah said, "I'll think about dignity. And about the people who stood up for what was right," Damon added, thinking about Officer Thompson, David, Amanda, and the customers who had provided witness statements. The story could have ended there, but the consequences continued rippling outward. The incident sparked broader conversations about retail discrimination, economic profiling, and the assumptions people make based on appearance. Jessica, facing unemployment and mounting bills, was forced to take a minimum wage job at a small boutique clothing store. The humiliation was complete, but it also became the beginning of genuine reflection and change. 6 months after the incident, Jessica would write a letter to Dr. Richardson, not seeking forgiveness, but acknowledging the harm she had caused and the lessons she had learned. The letter would never be sent, but writing it marked the beginning of her own transformation. The tennis bracelet would become more than a piece of jewelry. It would be a reminder that dignity isn't negotiable, that assumptions can destroy lives, and that sometimes change comes from the most unexpected places. But the story wasn't over yet. The real test would come in whether the changes implemented in corporate boardrooms and training sessions would translate to genuine transformation in how people treat each other. This is why accountability matters. When people face real consequences for discrimination, it sends a message that this behavior won't be tolerated. If you agree, subscribe to support more stories that demand justice. Do you think Jessica deserved to lose her job, or was the punishment too harsh? What would real justice look like in this situation? Share your thoughts below. The fallout from the incident began within hours. Sarah Chen's video exploded across social media, garnering over 300,000 views by midnight. The hashtag jewelry while shopping was trending nationally, and news outlets were picking up the story. Kelly Thornton, the district manager, received the first call from corporate headquarters at 6:47 a.m. The voice belonged to Marcus Webb, Senior Vice President of Operations. Kelly, I'm looking at a video of one of our store managers calling police on a pediatric surgeon. Tell me this isn't as bad as it looks. Kelly had spent the night reviewing security footage and police reports. The evidence was damning. Marcus, it's worse than it looks. The security footage shows clear discriminatory treatment. The police report confirms the customer did nothing wrong. Multiple witnesses support his account. What's the manager's name? Jessica Crawford. Terminate her. Today. This ends now. By 8 a.m., Kelly was sitting across from Jessica with two corporate executives who had driven through the night. The meeting was brief and decisive. Jessica, your employment with Prestige Jewelers is terminated effective immediately, Kelly began. Your actions yesterday violated company policy, federal anti-discrimination laws, and our core values. I can explain. There's nothing to explain. We've reviewed everything: security footage, police reports, witness statements. You discriminated against a customer based on his appearance. Jessica's face went white. I was trying to protect the store. From what? A pediatric surgeon trying to buy his wife a Valentine's gift. The termination process was swift. Jessica's access was revoked, her keys confiscated, and her belongings boxed up. She was escorted from the premises by mall security, walking past news cameras that had gathered outside. Within 6 hours of the incident, Jessica Crawford was unemployed. The video continued spreading, making her name synonymous with retail discrimination. Her LinkedIn profile was flooded with negative comments. Future job applications would forever be haunted by Google search results showing the incident. Corporate moved quickly to contain the damage. A company-wide memo went out that afternoon announcing policy changes, mandatory bias training, and a zero-tolerance approach to discrimination. David was promoted to store manager. Amanda received a commendation and raise for speaking up. Dr. Damon Richardson completed his purchase of the tennis bracelet from David, the same bracelet Jessica had refused to show him. The transaction processed smoothly, no questions, no verification required, no assumptions made. As Damon left the store with the elegant gift box, reporters approached for comment. His response was measured and dignified. I hope this incident leads to positive changes so no other customer has to experience what I did today. The bracelet was presented to Sarah that Valentine's Day at their anniversary dinner. As she admired it on her wrist, they both understood it represented more than their 15-year marriage. Every time I wear this, Sarah said, I'll remember that dignity isn't negotiable. Jessica returned to her apartment to face the reality of unemployment and a reputation destroyed by her own actions. The video would follow her forever, a permanent reminder of how quickly bias and poor judgment can destroy a career. 3 months later, David reported that store culture had completely transformed. Customer complaints dropped to zero. Sales increased as word spread about the welcoming environment. The incident, while painful, had forced necessary changes that made the business stronger. The tennis bracelet became more than jewelry, it became a symbol that accountability matters, that discrimination has consequences, and that sometimes change requires swift, decisive action. Jessica's termination sent a clear message throughout the retail industry. Treating customers with dignity isn't optional, it's required. And sometimes justice is served not through lengthy processes or second chances, but through immediate accountability that makes it clear such behavior will never be tolerated. When discrimination happens, swift action like this sends the right message. There are real consequences for treating people badly. If you agree that accountability matters, subscribe to support more stories that demand justice. Do you think Jessica's immediate termination was the right response? Or should companies give employees a chance to learn and grow from their mistakes? What does real accountability look like to you?